Keep it center.
You can see Maharaj. They can see you from that camera, but you can do it.
Okay. Yeah. They can see now?
Yeah, they can see.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the continuation of the discussion on the foundational texts of Indian philosophy. This meeting will be recorded and it will be posted on YouTube. So if you have missed any of the previous discussions, you may find it on YouTube. Also, there will be a question and answer segment at the end of the discussions. If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask. Please use the raise hand feature also in order to maintain the queue. Also, if you are not speaking, please mute yourselves in order to minimize the disturbances. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
So, we were discussing RāMΑNUJA'S philosophy before that invocation. Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avataravaristhaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. So when we were discussing different aspects of RāMANUJA'S philosophy, I already mentioned earlier, RāMANUJA'S system also is a kind of Advaita, but different from the Advaita of Shankaracharya. So RāMANUJA'S Advaita is sometimes called Viśiṣṭādvaitam, and he establishes his Advaita or unity of existence on the basis of the special feature called the Viśiṣṭādvaita, means unity which is conditioned. That's a possible literal translation of Viśiṣṭādvaita. In contrast to Shankaracharya, who calls it Swarupaikyam, which is essentially by its very nature, by its very pristine nature, which is one, based on the idea of unity of existence and reality. Now, how does RāMANUJA establish this? In Shankara's system, which we already discussed earlier, the unity is achieved based on this idea that what we see as plurality is there, but at the end of the day, you understand it is only a mental projection. Well, I can give many examples. The example of the rope and snake is one, but maybe a much more clearer example is, suppose we see in front of us different dishes, different cups and saucers and jars and glass, let's say containers made of clay. Now, it will be ridiculous for anyone to say that all these are the same. Obviously, anyone will understand that a cup made of clay is different from a jar made of clay. It's totally different. So, there is really, apparently, on the face of it, you can't see any unity. You can't say that cup is the same as the jar. But then when you look at, what is it made of? The cup or the pot is made of clay, and the jar also is made of clay. And like that, there may be this plurality of existence. Nama and Rupa. Different forms and different names. Infinite number and infinite in the variety of forms. Now, when you focus on the difference in terms of forms and names, then there can be no unity. But if you focus on the essence, the essential thing out of which these different pots and pans are made, then obviously everything is clay. Now, Rāmānuja and Madhva and other non-Advaitic philosophers will tell you that the differences in terms of its utility makes it a real difference. I can make it clear. A cup made of pot may be used for drinking water. A jar made of clay may be used for storing water. A huge vessel made of clay can be used for, let's say, for storing grains. So there is a great difference in terms of utility. And you call them by different names. That's because they have different forms. So that makes it totally different. Now Shankaracharya says, this difference is of a relative nature, impermanent, not absolutely, not is an absolute nature. Because if you break them all, they all go back to clay. And then, before they were made, they were all clay. So when they are standing in front of you as different pots and pans, names and forms, then also they are clay. So actually there was no pot apart from clay. You remove all the clay from the pot is gone. You remove all the gold from different golden ornaments, the ornaments are gone, but gold is there. Now, it is called Vyavaharika Buddhi, means difference in terms of practical utility. Now, Ramanuja, Madhva and all other non-Advaitic Vedantins will tell you that this practical utility value is of a permanent nature. So that means, according to Madhvacharya, the difference even goes beyond that. He says a cup made of clay is fundamentally different from a pot made of clay. Because you don't drink water with a pot. For that you need a cup. So that makes it a totally different thing. So according to it called Panchabheda Siddhanta, to understand Advaita of Shankaracharya, Viśiṣṭādvaita of Ramanuja, you can see Dvaita of Madhvacharya, Panchabheda Siddhanta. Everything in this phenomenal world is different from each other. And God is different from everything in this world. And every living being is different from every other living being. And every living being different from every other non-living beings. And every non-living being is different from God. So the Panchabheda Siddhanta, if you got a triangle, you can think of 5 possible distinctions. So everything is different from everything else. That means a golden ornament, a golden ring is essentially, fundamentally, completely, absolutely different from a golden watch. But Shankara will tell you, all right, utility is there. You can't use a golden ring. You have to put it maybe in your ears, but you can't use it as a ring to wear in your hands. You can use it as a necklace to wear in your neck. But Shankaracharya will tell you, Advaita will tell you, well, there is difference, but that difference is only secondary, not primary difference. That kind of distinction, that means Vyavaharika Paramarthika, difference in a difference which is only relative, that means distinction based on relativity and a non-distinction from an absolute point of view, these ideas are not fundamentally accepted by any of the non-Advaitin Vedantis. This is a fundamental difference. So, in fact, that's why it is called Aprutak Siddhi. This particular unity or Viśiṣṭādvaita that Ramanuja calls it, it is established through an interesting philosophical doctrine. It is called Aprutak Siddhi. Pruthak means distinct. Aprutak means non-distinct. All jivas and different phenomenal objects, they are non-different from God, but then they are not the same. That's it. So there is a dependence. Jivas, that is souls, individual souls, and Jagat, the phenomenal world and different objects in the phenomenal world, they are dependent upon God. They are evolutes of God. That is Parinama Siddhanta is accepted by Ramanuja. not in the same way in which Sankhyas and Yoga philosophers accept Parinama. It is Prakriti Parinama, but Ramanuja's view is Brahma Parinama. So, or you may call it Ishvara Parinama. God transforms, it's a permanent transformation, into Jivas and Jagat, different individual souls and the phenomenal world. Transformation, Parinama. In Sankhya system, in Yoga system, because Yoga philosophers follow the views of Sankhya. Sankhya is the original philosophical aspect of Yoga philosophers. They believe Prakriti Parinama. From matter, everything evolves. But in Ramanuja's Vedanta, from God, from Sriman Narayana, everything evolves. It is called Brahman. His concept of Brahman is Sriman Narayana, or the Saguna Sakara Ishvara. So he establishes this idea of unity on the basis of special Aprathak Siddhi. That is, everything in this world and all jivas are dependent upon God. God is independent. And of course, this is sometimes I explain the relation between Brahman, that is Sriman Narayana or Saguna Brahman, and Chit and Achit. Jivas, Chit and Achit, this Prakriti, the phenomenal world, he calls it Sharira, Sharirin, Prakara, Prakarin, Athara, Atheya. 3 terms that he uses this in his system. Sharira, Shariri means, for example, Sharira is body. Sharirin is the one who has got this body. In other words, God is the one who possesses this body. What is this body? This Jiva Jagat. That means this all the individual souls, the entire creation, living beings, and also the non-living phenomenal world and all the various objects. They together constitute the body of Ishvara. And Ishvara is the one who has this body. Sharirin is called. So Prakara, Prakarin. Prakara means mode. So Jiva and Jagat, Chit and Achit, different individual souls and the phenomenal world. They constitute Prakara, means mode. And Prakarin is the one who has this mode, the possessor of this mode. Athara and Atheya. Athara is Brahman, God. Is the support, the base. Atheya is something that is sustained by Athara. See, for example, a pot is Athara. The water in that pot is Atheya. So that makes it all the more clear. Brahman or God is independent. Everything else is dependent. They exist because of God, because of Sriman Narayana. Somebody called Vishnu, Narayana and all that. Vaikuntha Gadyam is there, so the Vishnu is identified with Sriman Narayana. Now, there is a little bit of interesting dialectical difference between these two views. That's very interesting. I mentioned earlier the 2 views of RāMANUJā'S on the one hand, and that view is in a different way, with slight difference, followed by Sankhyas and Yogas. Of course, they're much older than RāMANUJA system. And that one hand, and Shankaracharya system. Shankaracharya says this Brahman becoming this world is only a matter of transfiguration, not transformation. It is not like the oil seeds becoming oil. It is rather like gold becoming golden rings, golden cups, golden necklaces, and so on, or rather clay becoming clay pots, pans, jars, and other vessels made of clay. As I mentioned, you remove all the clay from all the clay pots and jars all made of clay. There will be no jars, there will be no pots, there will be only clay. Because clay pot cannot stand independent of clay. But that dependence is not like the dependence of Jiva and Jagat depending upon God. Rather, essentially, it is the same. So, a transformation, if it is not real, is called a kind of, it is transfiguration. Rather, we think that the clay has become permanently, the clay has become the clay pot. The clay pot cannot go back to the clay. That is an error, that is adhyasa. That is a misunderstanding, just as you mistake the rope for a snake. But as you evolve further in your spiritual life, you suddenly realize, well, after all, this transformation is only apparent. That's what Advaitins will tell you. And this apparent transformation is called Vivarta. Vivartavada means this approach that this transformation of Brahman into Jagat and Jiva is only apparent transformation, not real transformation. But RāMānuja will tell you it is a real transformation. Sankhyas also will tell you it is a real transformation. But this real transformation, oil seeds becoming oil. Oil cannot go back to oil seeds. But clay pots can go back to clay. Golden rings and necklaces can go back to gold. That's why there's a famous statement. These are the gems of Vedanta philosophy. Unless you understand this, we won't get a real handle on Vedanta. People who don't have access to these, every day you read books and articles that will tell you if RāMānuja can make a mistake. Why not modern scholars, Indians? In India also there are so many writers, especially modern writers. They will tell you, Shankaracharya says, I am not here, you are not here, we are not speaking. There is no electricity now, and there is no mic system now. The table is not in front of me. Swami Vedanta is sitting in front of me listening to, he is not sitting there. That's what Vedanta tells us. That is absolute gibberish. So, to make this point clear, there is a quotation. It is from Sarvajñātma Muni. He is a post-Shankarite Advaitins. He wrote a well-known book, Samkshepa Sarirakam. He says, Vivartavadasya Purvabhumi Vedantavade Parinamavadaha Vivasthidesmin Parinamavade Soyam Samayadi Vivartavadaha. So, Vivartavadasya Purvabhumi Vedantavade Parinamavadaha Vivasthidesmin Parinamavade Soyam Samayadi Vivartavadaha. So, well, the first stage, the prima facie view, so to speak, of Vivartavada is that we all think actually that the threads have become the cloth, the clay has become clay pot, the gold has become golden ring, has really become, means R capital. That is the first understanding. I mean, there are two levels of understanding. The first understanding is usually prima facie understanding. It is not exactly, it doesn't really tally exactly with the meaning of Latin expression or the meaning in which it is used in the law of court. But that's the Purva Paksha, means the first apparent, the first superficial understanding, which actually is to be corrected. Now, so Purva Bhumi, so Vivartavadasya Purva Bhumi Vedantavade Parinamavadaha. So in our spiritual evolution, first we think the thread has actually become the cloth, the gold has actually become golden ring, etc. Means it cannot go back to gold. But then gradually, as we evolve further, then you understand, well, actually, this transformation is not a permanent transformation. Why? Because if you melt this golden ring, golden necklace, all, then it goes back to gold only. The same gold from which it is made. Again, the cloth. You remove all the threads, they go back to thread formation. So, the transformation of threads into cloth, tandu pada, is a term used in Vedantic language. That transformation is only apparent. But that's the second level of understanding, the more accurate level of understanding. And so it's a matter of spiritual evolution. So Shankaracharya uses the word adhyasa and maya, etc. But Ramanujacharya doesn't accept the idea of dividing reality into the absolute reality, the vyavaharika empirical reality, the common sense experience, and also the conceptual reality. Ramanuja doesn't agree with. Ramanuja says the world is there, we can see, it is there. It is as real as Brahman itself. Shankaracharya will tell you, well, it is there, but it will not be there all the time. As you know, any student studying elementary physics will tell you, this world was not what it is maybe some billions of years ago, and will not be what it is some billions of years later. The world is bound to change. So anything that changes is not absolutely real, it is not paramarthika, it is only vyavaharika. That also Ramanuja doesn't accept. You can find in Ramanuja's bhashya, very interestingly, Ramanuja says, the Advaitins view that what undergoes change and modification is not absolutely real, that cannot be accepted. But the translation they will tell you, Shankaracharya says, what undergoes change is unreal, and Ramanuja says, what undergoes change cannot be called unreal. So on the face of it, you understand your Ramanuja is perfectly right. But what Shankaracharya means is not absolutely real. What undergoes change is not absolutely real. Water becomes vapor, and again it can go back to water. Something changes from one to another status. So the one form is not absolutely real, in the sense it can change its form. It's what is subjected to modification. What undergoes change in the past, present and future. What undergoes change, let's say, in terms of birth, existence, growth, evolution, decay and death. Jayade, asti, vardhade, viparinamade, apakshide, vinashyadi. 6 changes. Goes back to Yaskas Nirukta. Anything that undergoes change, like the Shadvikara, 6 changes, cannot be absolutely real, but Shankaracharya never says it is absolutely unreal. Remember this very well. Advaitis never tell us that this world is absolutely unreal. What Advaitins tell us is this world only, it is not absolutely real, but not absolutely unreal. It is real in the relative sense. That's the idea behind. So, and Ramanuja, of course, famous sloka is there, Matta Paravarananya Kinjidasti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvamidam Prodam Sutre Manigana Iva. That is a very beautiful sloka in the Gita, maybe in the 7th chapter it comes. Matta Paradaramna Anyan Kinjidasti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvamidam Prodam Sutre Manigana Iva. There is nothing apart from me, distinct from me, and everything is harmonized on me like pearls are strung together in a thread. Like that, and a thread, and all the varieties of names and forms, the entire plurality of existence is just like pearls which are strung together in the thread. So this is a very, very important point. So the Ramanuja's Bhashya says, Ashesha chit achit prakaram brahmaigameva tattvam tatra prakara prakarinohu prakaranam cha mitha atyanta bhete abhi vaishishtyadi vivakshaya egutta vipateshaha taditara nishedhascha. So vaishishtyadi vivakshaya egutta vipateshaha. That is Ramanuja's. Means that itara nishedhascha. So he is trying to reject or refute the Advaitins' view, because Advaitins accept Surupaikyam, which is not acceptable to Ramanuja. So he may be implying the Advaitins' view, because Advaita became popular almost 350 years before Ramanuja. I remember Ramanuja's own first guru, Yadava Prakasha. He was teaching Advaita, and there is a very disturbing statement in the Chandogya, that the Kapyasam Pundarikam, etc., which is not so important to refer to. So the guru was expounding it, and Ramanuja started shedding tears. How can God's eyes be compared to an animal's parts, etc.? But then, so that is how it started. So what one has to understand, Ramanuja's Advaita guru was Yadav Prakasha. And again, he has written some minor works according to, but they also do not reflect the real, genuine Advaita philosophy of Adi Shankara. It is a distortion, and it is a distraction from mainstream Advaita, which is what Ramanuja was listening to, which actually began the entire problem with Ramanuja, which eventually led Ramanuja to start this. Now there is another important thing which I want to mention here. So that's again another important thing. There is one well-known sutra in Brahma Sutras, which is frequently discussed as, of course, Brahma Sutra is a big book. It has got 4 chapters, altogether 554 sutras. In some version, which is not, so just one view, 555, but 554 sutras. The second sutra is frequently discussed in Ramanuja's books, Sri Bhashya, and also in the smaller book Vedanta Deepa, which is called. So the second sutra is Janmadhyasya Taka. Janmadhyasya Taka. From which Janma, birth, etc. of this cosmos emerge. The implication is that reality, the supreme truth, from which the world emerges, in which this world exists, and towards which this world dissolves into. So the focus of origin, existence, and dissolution of the universe. That is Brahman. So it actually is coming from Krishna Yajurveda Taittiriya Upanishad. But there is an important, very interesting episode where a little boy is asking his father to teach him the supreme spiritual truth, Brahma Vidya. It begins like this. Adhihi bhavo brahmedi bhrugurvai varunihi varunam pitaram upasasara adhihi brahmedi. Then Varuna, the guru and father, teaches him, Yato va imani bhudani jayante yena jatani jivandi yet praindabhisam visandi tad vijijñāsasva tad brahma. This is a famous, very well-known statement from the Taittiriya Upanishad. So the Adhihi Bhagavo Brahma iti. Please teach me, O Lord, his own father and guru. The little boy asked. That's why Bhrigu, that's the name of the boy. He goes to his father. and ask him, please teach me Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of Brahman. Athihi bhavo brahmeti. And when the father heard this question, the father responds, Yatova imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yet prayant abhisambhisanti tad vijñāsasva the Brahma. From what the entire world, all these living beings emerge, all the trees and mountains and valleys, sky and moon, everything, from what they originate and where they exist and where they get dissolved. Realize that. Tad Brahma vijñāsasva. That you should realize through meditation. And this is the instruction. And Bhrigu went, sat under a tree, meditated for a long time. Then he thought, Annam Brahmeti Vijanat, Anna Deva Imani Bhutani Jayanti, Annena Jatani Jivanti, Annam Prayante Visampisanti, etc. The first stage of realization, spiritual evolution. Bhrigu thought, after some time, after some meditation, he thought, like a kindergarten boy, thinking that learning alphabet is the greatest thing in education. Like this boy thought, matter is the only thing that exists, matter. Annam literally means food that is prepared, but here it means matter. So, matter is the reality from which everything emerges. In matter, they all exist. Matter is the support of everything, and matter is the point of dissolution of everything. And father said, no, that's wrong. Again, you should go and meditate. And then after some time, the little boy came back, many years of meditation perhaps, and said, Pranam. Prana means the vital energy. So, because Annam, Pranam, Chakshusotram, etc., they already mentioned earlier. That's why this boy had this, he thought he had already realized the supreme truth, and the supreme truth is matter. And then he thought vital energy. Then he thought it is mind. Then he thought it is the intellect. Then also the father told him, no, you are not right, you are wrong, you have to go ahead, you have to go further. You have to go meditate further, you should inquire further. And then the boy thought, Anandam meri vejanat. Ananda means absolute blissfulness. So that's the last of his destination. Actually, the reality also is beyond that. So that's a different subject. It comes in the Taittiriya. And this is called Ananda Mimamsa. Is a very elaborate subject. Maybe next time, when some other time we'll discuss this. It's a separate topic. I mean, related to this, of course. So, the point is, based on that mantra, that part of Upanishad, Badarayana made this sutra, Janmadhyasya. So, Shankaracharya, who wrote the first and the most, apparently the most authentic Brahma Sutra Bhashya, he established that supreme reality is the origin, the sustenance, and also the point of dissolution. But at the same time, we cannot say that this birth, existence, and dissolution, that is Janmasthiti Laya, they do not constitute a fundamental, a complete definition of Brahman. Brahman cannot be defined, the supreme reality cannot be defined. It is vacham agocharam, it is beyond the realm of words and the realm of mind. But then with words, with books, we can certainly get an approximation of the supreme reality. So, that is his interpretation. So, according to Shankaracharya, words do not entirely define the Supreme Reality. Words can only give an indication. It's a remote indication. They would call Tadastha Lakshana. Means Satchidananda, Tadastha Lakshana. It's a remote indication. I mean, from word to word emerges, etc. It's only a Tadastha Lakshana. So, but Ramanuja will tell you, no, it is a complete definition. It is a complete definition. Now, coming back to the subject, you have to remember, Lakshana is an indication amounting to a definition. So, Ramanuja will tell you, this is the Lakshana. This is a complete definition, complete indication or description of the Supreme Reality. God as the Creator is the highest definition of the Supreme Reality, which even, as we discussed earlier on many occasions, even Meister Eckhart rejected. And Meister Eckhart was the only theologian in Christian tradition who had the courage, the intellectual, logical courage to state that even defining God as just the creator of the world is a limitation which is not metaphysically acceptable. So if you define God, you are limiting God. So even the Holy Trinity ideal is only an approximation. The reality goes even beyond that, which is of course not accepted to the mainstream church, for which he was a Dominican priest. But in Vedanta, in Shankara Vedanta, this is the fundamental principle. The Supreme Reality is something to be experienced as an immediate reality, and it is not something that can be explained. But any attempt to study books and texts and any description, any discussion of this subject will certainly be helpful to prepare our mind to eventually reach a point where we realize the reality of Brahman. But the description doesn't equal to what it describes. That's why towards the end of the Chatusutri Bhashya, Shankaracharya says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, that Mahavakya statement, and Aham Brahmasmi, that Mahavakya experience, are two different levels. When you reach the experience, even the Mahavakya, the statement itself becomes irrelevant. You transcend the statement when you reach the experience dimension, when you reach the experience level of what you are stating. But Shankaracharya will tell you this, Yatova imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti, etc. God is, or the Brahman is the origin, sustenance, and the point of dissolution of the universe is only an indirect, incomplete indication. That is what Shankaracharya will tell. But Ramanuja says, no, it is a full-flooded definition. Now, this indication, generally, indication can be twofold. One is Viśiṣṭādvaita, the other is Upalakshana. A little bit of this dialectical, hermeneutical things will be quite intellectually rewarding, maybe stimulating. So, Upalakshana and Viśiṣṭādvaita. I can first give example that makes it very clear. Suppose you are making a statement. Suppose you want to tell somebody, if somebody asks you the question, where is this man's home? Okay. In the Sanskrit books you find Devadatta is often used. Devadatta, old liberal Sanskrit name. In modern times you can say George. You can say, where is George's home? Somebody asks you. You can say, well, the house where a crow is sitting in front of the gate, that is George's home, you may say. In the Sanskrit books, it is called, Kakopavishta Devadatta Griham. That is Sanskrit statement. Devadatta may be very difficult to pronounce in this 21st century America, So, Kopavishnu Devadatta Griha means Devadatta, you are asking, where is Devadatta's home? The Devadatta's home is the house or the home in front of which a crow is sitting. Now that doesn't help you very much. George's home is the building or the house in front of which there is a crow sitting right now. The crow won't be sitting there after a few minutes. So by the time you reach there, it doesn't help you. So it is only upalakshana. I mean that kind of indication as only temporary or relative value, not absolute value. Another one is the kakebhyo dadhi dakshadam. This is contraction, that is expansion. You can expand also. So a mother asking the little child, after keeping some dathi here means yogurt, which should be kept under sunlight in the morning. It's an old tradition in ancient Vedic times. So a little child is asked to sit in front of the mud pot in which this yogurt is kept. Not the American yogurt, but yogurt of the early days, or even today in India, it needs exposure to sunlight, for some time. So the child is asked by his mother, you sit and make sure that that crows don't come and eat this yogurt. So you should drive the crows away. It means not only crows, some other birds also may come, some human being may come to steal this yogurt. So the child is expected to safeguard yogurt not only from crows but also from other birds. Maybe a stray dog will come and eat this yogurt. The child should not think, my mother only asked me to protect yogurt from crows, so I should not act. I need not act if a dog is coming, a cat is coming and eating the yogurt. So, by indication, it implies the child is expected to safeguard this yogurt, not only from the crows, but also from any other creatures, dogs or human beings also. If they try to steal this yogurt, he should make a sound, he should try to prevent it. So it's an expansion and contraction, the upalakshana. So Ramanuja says these upalakshanas are involved in this definition. The other more important one is Viśiṣṭādvaita. These two aspects constitute lakshana. Viśiṣṭādvaita is something different. Suppose instead of saying, suppose somebody asks you, where is Devadatta's home? Where is John's home, let us say. Then you say, or you are asking for John's home. If you walk a little further, you will find, let's say, a big tree or a field or a well. That's John's home. That description is very helpful because it is not like saying the house in front of which there is a crow, that's George's home. No, because that is helpful only to a limited extent. But this is called Viśiṣṭādvaita. Suppose instead of giving the example of crow sitting in front of the home, you say that's the home in front of which you find a huge tree, mango tree is standing in front of the building. That is the house of George. Then that description is perfectly valid. It is of a permanent nature. Because it's not like crow will not be there after a few minutes, but the well or the tree will be there all the time. Now these are two types of lakshanas. So RāMāNUJā'S tell you that the description of God as the origin, support and the point of dissolution of the entire cosmos. It is a full-flooded description and definition. It is a Viśiṣṭādvaita and also an upalakshana. Whatever you may take, because these two constitute a definition or an indication. This is an indication, clear indication. Because in Shankaracharya system, if you can clearly indicate and define and describe God, that God becomes imperfect and incomplete. Definition is limitation. So you are creating a structure, like putting a photo within a frame. At 4 points, you have to have a frame on bottom and top and both sides. Frames, You are putting the photo within this frame. So it is limited. Like that, when you define God, when you explain this is a complete indication of God, you are actually saying God is something that can be defined, described, explained. So that God cannot be infinite. God cannot be transcendental. More, in some ways, Kant was with maybe unconsciously trying to reach this level of metaphysics in his Critique of Pure Reason, when he talks about the noumenon, going beyond the phenomenon noumenon. But then the metaphysical depth is here. So the absolute reality cannot be defined, cannot be explained. The absolute spiritual reality can only be experienced. It cannot be defined. So you cannot say, what is God? God is the creator of the world. So that you're reducing God into the status of a creatorship. And in Vedantic books, there are strong arguments put forward in defense of this view. Advaita. It says, it implies, suppose you define God as the one who created this world, then you are implying that God has some desire. He wants to do something. He is in need of something. He is wanting something. He is lacking something. That's why he is creating this world. If you listen to some of the interesting arguments between atheists and the great theologians, in which the great theologians routinely get completely and absolutely defeated by the atheists, whether Richard Dawkins or Christoph Hitchens. I have never heard of a single theologian coming victorious from any debate with any of these great humanists, with any of these great thinkers who are all agnostics and in some cases even atheists. That's because they are trying to define God. Who is God? God is the creator of the world. So God is in need of something. If you suppose in your home you are a carpenter, you are now involved in making, let us say you are involved in cooking, which means you want to cook and you want to eat, you are in need of food. Suppose you are involved in carpentry work, you are making a table. It means you are making a table, something that you are in need of, either for your use or for selling. You are in need of something. So you are doing something and you are making something. That need makes God limited or finite. You cannot say a God who is in need of creating this world as a very wonderful, very absolute, very infinite, transcendental being. So Shankaracharya says the definition of God, indication of God or the absolute reality Brahman as a point of origin, sustenance or support or point of dissolution of this cosmos, this world, that doesn't amount to a complete indication or definition, because the absolute reality cannot be defined as just the creator of this world. Okay, now we can have interaction. You are most welcome with the questions. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Go ahead, Kate.
Swami, thank you so much for these talks. I was wondering if I could ask you a question from this morning's talk on karma.
Yeah, oh yeah, most welcome, yeah.
Um,
Did you listen in person or online?
I listened to it in a Zoom. I live 3 hours away from San
Okay,
Francisco.
most welcome. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. You spoke of concordance of karmas coming together. So a person does an action, and of course there's a cause and effect. But when I begin to think of other people's karma connected to mine, and then I start to think of all indeed is Brahman, then it makes me think that everything that comes into my consciousness is karma for me to either react positively or negatively as far as realizing God. Is that correct thinking?
That's a very, very correct thinking. If we can think of all that we experience as part of our own spiritual evolution as coming from God, then these conflicts of karma, it will leave us alone. We will be totally untouched by these conflicts. If we can think of everything as one supreme reality, including the unpleasant experiences as well as pleasant experiences as part of the same reality, then you are able to look upon all this with an equanimity of mind, with mind in perfect equilibrium. You will remain totally unaffected by these conflicts or these different experiences. That's why Advaita comes to the rescue in all these areas. If we can think of, and slowly along with that, if you also read some of these books and try to convince ourselves of this reality, and slowly you find, at some point, you actually find, oh, after all, it is true. At the beginning, you are taking risk, you are taking refuge in Vedanta as a possible solution to this bewildering variety of karmas from different corners, from different people. And then you read, you listen to these ideas. Eventually, when you reach a level of equilibrium of the mind is able to look upon both unpleasant and pleasant experiences with the same equanimity, then you find after all, it's a fact. As part of this evolution, you will realize eventually, after all, it is all true that comes to us. That's a gradual evolution. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Seek open up, please.
Yeah, most welcome. Yeah.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Namaste.
You mentioned earlier that Sankhya provided some of the foundational arguments in Viśiṣṭādvaita. Even in the Gita, there is a lot of reference to Sankhya.
Yeah.
So, will you be able to spend some time explaining the fundamentals of Sankhya in one of your future lectures?
Oh, I can do. In fact, Sankhya system of philosophy will be included. It is actually Vedanta is the first one. After that, Sankhya and Yoga both will come. Yoga Sutras are different, but Yoga philosophy is separately I can deal with. But I want to mention to you something important. In the Gita, you find the second chapter is called Sankhya Yoga.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the Sankhya philosophy. The Sankhya means Jnana Yoga. In the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita is named Sankhya Yoga. That Sankhya is not the Sankhya of Kapila or Ishvara Krishna. The Sankhya means Jnana Yoga. That's an important thing to remember. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you.
Please go ahead, Kate.
Yeah.
Swamiji, could you spell the name of the person that has this philosophy that's slightly different than Shankaracharya? Could you spell it? I think it's Dhammanacharya. Is that
RāMāNUJA'S. Ramanuja. RAMANUJA. RāMāNUJA'S. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's what we are discussing. We have been discussing. We had Advaita sessions from 1st to 43rd, 44th. Then we are now doing Ramanuja for the last 10 sessions here.
David, you're next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Swami, I have a question about Ramanuja's teacher. Was wrong about Advaita from what you said. He did not do a good job of explaining Advaita. So my question is, how did Ramanuja have any spiritual experience if his teacher was inferior?
Yeah, I tell you, so it happened. So I will tell you a few things about this. Ramanuja's father passed away after his marriage, and he was a very compassionate, kind-hearted person who respected all teachers. And even during the time when he was living in his home with his family, he had shown his prodigious scholarship and also his humanistic attitude towards people and things. But then after his father passed away, father was a scholar and he was teaching under he was studying all these scriptures under his father. But father passed away. Then his relatives and others suggested to him to move to a nearby town, and that town is perhaps in Kanchipuram, which used to be an ancient center of one of the ancient centers of learning in India. In ancient India is one of the centers of learning. So he moved to Kanchipuram, and there he started learning under a great well-known scholar, and his name was Yadava Prakasha. And Yadava Prakasha was a staunch Advaiti. But Yadava Prakasha has written something on Advaita which doesn't actually correctly reflect the original teachings of Shankaracharya. There are some conflicting points. But he was a great scholar. He wrote books, naturally. So Ramanuja didn't agree with his interpretation. So Ramanuja left him, and then he went to some other nearby places, and he continued his studies under some other teachers who were more agreeable to his own views. But eventually he moved away from Advaita. Actually, he was never very comfortable with Advaita, even when he was studying. So he had a lot of controversial arguments with his teacher, so he left. Remember, so you have to remember, he was learning the scriptures. He was perhaps not spiritual preceptor, he was just teacher. Like going to university, you may learn physics from different universities. Like that, he was learning from a well-known scholar. And he was perhaps not a very advanced person spiritually, Yadava Prakasha, his first teacher. Then he went to other teachers, and eventually he learned from eventually he learned not only the Sanskrit scriptures, but also the teachings of the Alvars, whose teachings were quoted in the Bukkanalayara Prabandhas, so which he accepted with equal respect and reverence. So Ramanuja, in a way, he harmonized the teachings of the local devotee saints who had recorded their teachings in Tamil language, and he harmonized them with the teachings of the Upanishads and Puranas, by Vishnu Purana and other books. So that was his great work. Okay, that's all. Yeah.
Thank you, Swami.
Eventually he went to Srirangam, and there he lived the rest of his lifetime before his flight to Melkote due to the persecution of a Saivai king. That's the story. Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sanjay.
Yeah.
Maharaj, very basic question.
Yeah.
How does Advaita or Shankaracharya talk about the multiple lokas? Between births, where does the Atma reside? The Puranas talk about various lokas, and maybe that is more tied to the Viśiṣṭādvaita. They emphasize a lot on multiple lokas and Puranas. So, where do you think the Atmas reside between births?
Yeah. Shankaracharya doesn't pay much attention to the descriptions of these lokas. He may have mentioned here and there, but he doesn't consider this as a very important thing to describe. And remember, one important principle that perhaps was established by Shankaracharya, that is, there are three layers of our canonical literature, Vedanta and Indian philosophy. The highest and most authentic, the Upanishads, called Srutis. The lowest are Puranas, mythological books. In between there are Smritis, which are mostly books of law and how to practice Vedic dharma, Vedic culture in different times, in society, in social circles, individual level, family level, and so on. So actually, Ramanuja gave a lot of importance to Vishnu Purana. He himself wrote the Vaikuntha Gidya. There is a loka, there is a world called Vaikuntha where Vishnu is living there. That's why I told you earlier, it's very similar in some ways, in many ways, very similar to the Christian concept of going to heaven and living in close proximity with God, Father in heaven. Very similar. There are many striking similarities. So Ramanuja's system is considered to be more of a theology than a philosophy.
Yes.
It's a theology. Yes. God is very important. Religion is an integral part, central to Ramanuja's system. In Shankaracharya's system, God is there, it's very important, but it is as metaphysical, as philosophical as it is religious. It's not mere theology. So, these lokas and these different, those Shankaracharya doesn't consider it worthwhile to discuss those things. He is busy with the Upanishads, the great statement, the Upanishads. So I think he was a very busy man, 32 years, and for traveling all over India 4 times, starting no less than 10 monastic orders, writing all the most profound Sanskrit books and the most profound Sanskrit devotional poetry, almost 100 of them, and then starting 4 monasteries in 4 distinct corners of Indian subcontinent. So I don't think he would have bothered much about the Puranas. Those say Puranas are not insignificant. Puranas do tell you a story. They have wonderful, magnificent stories in Puranas. But Puranas also talk about things which may not make sense. So they do have a value. Okay, they do. But there are stories of demons and all kinds of people, demons with 500 hands and 10 heads and things like that. I think Shankaracharya would not have considered them as worthy of much attention and contemplation, that's idea. That's what it appears to be. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yeah. I'm not seeing any more hands or questions on the YouTube live chat.
Yeah, okay, right. So we'll conclude, but before conclusion, I want to mention we have 2 important events in the near future. One is, of course, Christmas. We have a small program, and on January 1st we have a very important program in the new temple, Vellore Street, January 1st. It is the first, January 1st, important, called Puja and Kalpaduru and so on. And then, more importantly, we have a program in 2024 January, 6th and 7th, Saturday and Sunday. We have a program. That is, we have a winter retreat. And so the concept of consciousness in Hindu scriptures, Vedanta scriptures, and their practical implication in our individual life. So we have 3 sessions. Each session will last for an hour, plus followed by interaction, Q&A, question and answers. That is 6th and 7th of January, Saturday and Sunday. Of course, we will find information in the website. You can watch for it. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishnaarpanamastu. Okay, thank you.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you.